So we'll park that for now. Undoubtedly, we'll talk about HS2 again in the future, and I won't always be so willful. So we'll say willfully skeptical. I'm on alert, as it were, but I won't. I'm happy to be positive about HS2 as well. I just wanted to flag some of my concerns in this instance. But we'll move on to well, first of all, actually, the London Archaeologist at 50.
Yes.
You were very excited about a conference that you attended not that long ago.
Well, excited is maybe the wrong word. Actually, conferences come and go, and some of them are great, and some of them are not so great. And if the best of them, you also get to do some really good, networking, and you bump into friends and colleagues you maybe haven't seen for a while, and it's all good fun.
Hmm.
Um, this one was a little bit special because this is the London Archaeologist at 50 conference that was held in London a few weeks ago. London Archaeologist began really almost as a sort of uh, Xerox
Like a
you shoot,
fanzine.
like exactly like a fan. Well, I mean, it began in 1968 at the time, when rival publications included Oz,
Yeah, yeah.
and but 50 years on, it survived. It's gone from strength to strength. It's effectively a journal of record for London archaeology now,
Mm.
and pretty much anybody who's ever been anybody in London archaeology has written for it at various times.
Hmm.
Um, it, the conference they set up was really to take an overview of those 50 years, and what I was so interested about, in seeing was how what has happened in London, I think, is arguably what has also happened in the country, and the things that we were talking about a few minutes ago in terms of HS2 and how the profession of archaeology, practice of archaeology, has responded to that and where it might go in the future. We were seeing all the same things in the roundup at the London Archaeologists Conference.
Hmm.
For example, uh, the it, the magazine grew out of the rescue work that was being done with no real legal backing.
Mm.
Um, and people, there were stories uh, of people literally, you know, in the shadow of the JCB bucket, trying to
Mm.
record Roman or medieval remains and sites in the 60s and early 70s.
Mm.
Um, that led to the
So,
growth
sorry, just
of.
briefly then, would you describe that as akin to grassroots then, or was it slightly more organised than that?
It was more organised than that, in that it was being done by professional archaeologists, people with
Right.
archaeological training.
Mm.
People like Harvey Sheldon in Southwark. And again, I must declare an interest. Harvey was my master's supervisor when I did my MA.
Hmm. But in that
But
sense, was it just being done in an environment that was much less receptive to archaeologists being given space to
it
do their work?
it began to be. There is an apocryphal story that after the development of the Temple of Mithras site was held up
Hmm.
by the famous site that Professor Grimes excavated, um, and was the lead archaeologist on. Uh, After that was so publicly popular and
Mm.
held up development that the Corporation of the City of London wouldn't allow archaeologists onto sites in the city for 10 years afterwards.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, whatever the truth of that, by the mid 60s, work was going on. There was a generation of archaeologists coming through. The Museum of London had its own archaeological service, which is now transformed into a commercial company, Mola. But
Hmm.
back in the day, it had for example, Peter Marsden was working for it, who's now down at the Maritime Museum at Hastings, but was recording for example, the Blackfriars Roman ship,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, and the Guy's Hospital Roman ship.
Mm.
Um, by the mid 60s, you've got also work going on in Southwark, which Harvey was involved in, um, and that develops through the 60s and 70s. So you're building up a centre of gravity of professional archaeological experience across London. Uh,
Mm.
Most of the local authorities begin to introduce units. So, for example, there was a unit in East London operating out of Newham. and so on. And certainly by the mid 80s, you've got a very developed system of professional archaeological units who are doing work. And then in 86, you get the Rose Theatre.
Hmm.
You also, and at the same time, Barnard's Castle
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and the Huggin Hill Roman Baths. And those three sites together showed up the frailties of the system, the system of permissions that was then in place, because there was no legal framework. And the Rose Theatre was, again, people that are maybe not familiar with the story. It's the Shakespearean theatre where, or sorry, the Elizabethan theatre where many of Shakespeare's early plays were first performed.
Yeah.
Romeo and Juliet being an example. And
Well, and as
an office block.
sorry, what was that? Sorry.
It was going to be destroyed by an office block. It was excavated. It hadn't been predicted.
Yeah.
In quite the survival hadn't been predicted in quite the form that it was discovered when they broke ground on it.
Yeah.
And you ended up with a very well preserved Elizabethan playhouse, which was about to be destroyed by an office block. There was a huge row about it. You had people like Ian McKellen picketing the site to stop the JCB.
You shall not pass.
It was like that. No,
Sorry.
It was professional archaeology reaching out to the public and campaigning to get a better system.
Yeah.
And in the end, the government gave us PPG 16 and modern commercial archaeology, the kind of archaeology that is now dealing with sites like HS2, Stonehenge, and so on.
Yeah.
The problem, though, is that listening to some of the current practitioners in the commercial units, they don't want, at least on the basis of some of the comments that were made in the conference, they don't want to make those campaigning alliances with the wider public, because they're concerned with souring their relationship with the government and developers if they're too outspoken.
Yeah.
So whereas in the 70s...
So to put that another way, if you are I might use the word a conscientious company who maybe will tell the public if they come across a site which is sensitive or has a particular history, and that may well infringe upon the timetable for planned development, then you may be less likely to be hired, and therefore you may want to be so conscientious because the developer won't want you involved with their dig.
Put it this way, and I won't name the person, but a senior member of a major London-based contracting company told the conference quite openly that there were certain sites that their client would not allow them to talk about.
Yeah.
Now, to me, that is an absolute abrogation of any academic ethical framework, because archaeology, in the end, archaeology isn't about commercial secrets.
No,
it's about the past that we all share, and about communicating the past that we all share. If we can't communicate it and can't share it, there's no point in doing it.
Well, yeah, and yeah, you could almost go so far as to say, in a very literal sense, what's the point of doing that?
Yeah.
That excavation if we don't get to know about what they found.
Yeah.
But that's also a very dangerous first step to saying, oh well, we just don't need you guys at all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And again, just this week, I think it's a re-announcement, in fact, but the government in the budget, in the small print of the budget, was the government's consultation on making it a permitted development to demolish a commercial building to build homes.
Yeah.
Now, if a commercial building may be a 1960s box of no particular merit to anybody, or it may be a very well preserved Victorian shop that no longer pays in terms of the modern high street. And if that well preserved Victorian shop isn't listed, it could just be swept away as permitted development with next to no planning controls.
Yeah.
So
and it should be said, even after that process, the shot may still be disappeared, as it were, but at least it would be recorded, and there'd be some record. Yeah, there'd be some
We're currently,
process.
absolutely. I mean, we're currently facing a problem in Greenwich. We've talked about it with the Greenwich gas holder, which has been treated as permitted development. Although many people argue actually, Historic England have made a major mistake in not listing it.
Yeah, yeah.
So so in a sense, one of the interesting takeaways, again, it does tie in with the HS2 story we were covering in our earlier segment. I think one of the takeaways from the conference was that in certain aspects of practice, archaeology has been a victim of its own success. It was very successful in establishing itself as part of the planning system in the 1980s, based on that professional experience that was built up in the late 60s, 70s. But moving forward, that system is under threat, but the companies who are most threatened actually aren't able or willing to actually take on the threats in the way that their predecessors in the 60s and 70s generation were, by forming these alliances outside of the profession.
Well, and as we've talked about with Bosworth Field, you find arguably those people who should be on one side of a discussion, maybe making the case for defending a site, having to make the case for a development or for destroying a site because it's tied up intimately with their own survival as an institution. It's as you say, I say we. I wasn't alive then, but archaeologists did rush in to be part of that system, and now we're inextricably linked with permitting damage in the environment, which does put us in sometimes compromising situations.
I think, yes. I mean, what it has certainly done is it's divided and will continue to divide the profession.
Yeah.
And you can argue about whether that's a good thing when the profession is such a relatively small one anyway. I wouldn't want to be too hard on individuals as well. I mean, I know the archaeologists within the planning system were absolutely torn by some of the things they have to do. And in fact, one colleague told me once that when faced with a difficult compromise like that, what am I supposed to do? Just let the archaeology be destroyed and not engage with it?
Exactly, and this again brings me right back to our previous segment on HS2. It's archaeology. It's that relationship between archaeologists. The people know that they have a passion for doing this stuff, but there's a certain manipulability there. There's that manipulability. There's a certain malleability, rather. Sorry, whereby people don't have to be accountable for the long-term future of those jobs and that sector, but also you can put archaeologists into situations where, as you say, it's almost like being a doctor and being told, well, you can either treat this patient now, watch them suffer, but we're going to execute them anyway, or
Yes.
you can, that's your choice. You can treat them, watch them suffer, but ultimately the destination is going to be the same. And no doctor would not treat the patients if they had enough medicine to do so. The same goes for archaeologists. It's interesting ongoing conversations, I suppose.
And it's one we'll continue to have, I think.
Yeah.